Okay, so in this video we're going to make a board. I have this one here as an example. The board we're going to make is actually a four-way crossing. You see this is a three-way. But yeah, I want to make sure that I have a four-way board so I can finish my table. You'll notice that the end pieces, the roads, end at very specific locations, and that we have features like indents and trees. So let's get started on the new board right away. And I've already pre-cut it to be 12 inches by 12 inch, so it's a 1 foot square. This is my small board that I'm using for my table, but other people can choose different sides if they wish. I know Terranscapes likes 20 inches by 10 inches or 10 inches by 10 inches, but it's really up to you how big you want these. So my roads on my board are 2 inches apart, so since I'm doing a four-way, I want to line up that my 2 inches roads line up direct center of each corner. This is what makes it modular, so all my roads line up with each other. It does give a very much of a uniform look, but then it still allows me to be able to use the boards anywhere I need. Always measure twice just to be on the safe side. There has been times where I wasn't thinking, and next thing you know, you screw up. So I'm just drawing in some simple lines. It's just a rough mud road on my board, so I don't need to worry about being exact here. One of the roads I plan to basically make more used than the others, hence the rounder curve. But you'll see that when I start painting some of the details in. So yeah, so I'm also drawing these little marks here to kind of help me indicate where parts of the road I want higher than other parts, mostly because there's less wear here. I'll probably put a bunch of larger rocks in that area just to indicate that things just kind of get bumped off to that little corner. So in this step we're just going to cut out the lines of my roadways. I'm just kind of putting in a 1/4 of an inch indentation here, just slightly angled towards the road. And then I go back on the other side and I try to cut out about a 1/2 inch, even up to an inch rough cut all the way around. This gives me an indentation into the foam board that works really well for my roads. Don't worry about the sharp line at this point. We're going to go back and rough that up. So yeah, you just want to do this on all your sides here. So we'll start up with the next corner now. And yeah, you just want to make sure that you get a nice even cut all the way around. So now that we have cut everything out, we're going to actually start cutting a little bit more out of the roads just to get rid of this flat surface. So I just want to round out the roads. I'm just doing rough cuts. I'm going to texture the roads after, so it doesn't really matter how rough. Okay, so now that we've rounded out the roads, we need to deal with these sharp edges. We need to make them look a bit more natural. And basically we're just going to pick at it. We're going to go all the way around and just slowly pick at the edges, trying to make it a very uneven edge. And you don't worry about the edge of the boards too much. Try to keep them even, but within just like 2 or 3 millimeters of the, yes, I am Canadian, so millimeters of the edge of the board. Then you just start scruffing it all up as much as you possibly can. Don't worry about how thick it is, how shallow. You just want to make sure there's not a straight edge. So at this point in my videos here, I actually started getting errors in my videos, and the next 3 video steps that I wanted to show you aren't actually working. They got corrupted somehow. So I will try to explain everything I can up to the point where my videos started working again. So the very next step what we do here is we actually take a hot air gun or a blow dryer, and we're just going to run it quickly all over the road, so all the really loose ends and that little cutoff points kind of melt down quickly. Also, we want to add some irregularities into the road and to the surrounding flat areas at each corner. If you look in the picture that I currently have with the board lined up on the table, there's a little round circle on one of those squares which I've put a little indentation into the ground. This just helps it make it look a little bit more natural. And when I play the flock down, I'm going to do a special technique around that area to make it look a little more interesting. We also want to add some rocks at this point, so we're going to add a basic flock onto the roads. I use a pinkish ground up foam, and then we put some smaller rock details onto the road and the ground area around the roads. And I've also added a couple of larger rocks into the board on the sides of the roads, just to add some detailed features that would look nice and more natural. So at this point, we should be able to get back to another video, so you'll see all those features in which I just talked about added to the board, and we'll continue on from there. So, as I stated, we've got everything down, and we're going to start painting. I'm using I believe it's a cinnamon brown for my base coat. I've already started a little bit here, and we're just going to stipple away at the flock, and I've just put a glob of paint on one corner here, and I'm just going to keep dabbing this stuff down until such time that everything is covered. So you just work your way at it. I don't use a brushing motion here, I'm using a stippling motion. The flock is glued down, but it hasn't been protective coated yet. So if I use a back and forth motion too much, I can actually lift the flock up, and then I'm basically reflocking a second time. So you just want to keep going at this until you've finished everything, and we'll continue on with that step. So unfortunately, I'm still having video issues. I don't know why. But unfortunately, the next step is painting the road. Basically, at this point, I do in a kind of a dark gray mixed in with some darker browns, which gives the road a lot more texture. And I paint all the larger rocks light gray. And then I go over all that with black wash. This really darkens things down, adds some really nice features to the light gray rocks, and it gives a little bit of a muddier look, which is the type of roads I really like. So after you get that all done and everything's nice and dry, it comes time to add some flock, and luckily that video seems to work, so let's go to the flocking video. So to flock, there's lots of videos on how to do this. It's pretty simple. You're just going to use a white wood glue or Elmer's glue. Some people prefer to use a tackier glue. I really like this stuff, but it's not important. I just put down a nice big blob, and I'm going to paint everywhere that I want grass with the glue. I'm just going to stretch it all out. Don't worry about if you get, like I just did, spilled some on the road. This stuff does dry clear. Luckily this also has a matte finish, but it doesn't really matter. Once you add the grass, any accidental droppings usually can be hidden. As long as they're small. You can also go back over and wipe with a wet cloth if you really want to. So we just want to make sure we get right to all the edges, and we're just going to do this all over the board until every inch is covered with enough area to cover with flock. If the board is larger, you can always do it in sections. It seems to work, but I find this glue is a little slower on the drying, so I can do usually a full board and then flock. So now the glue's on, we're going to start sprinkling the flock on. This is my homemade flock. I do have a video for that already. Feel free to go and look. I use just a large spice container to sprinkle it all on, and we're just going to make sure that we get all over where the glue is. We want to get a really good coat on the edges as well. This helps blend it into all our other modular boards. So you just go through, you get a nice thick coating, and then once everything is done, we're going to pick up the board and we're also not going to worry about the white here. That's just the glue. When it dries, it will dry clear, and the brown undercoat will see through. It'll look great. So this is the final step, and basically we're just going to do some little more detailing on the road, on the rocks, and that kind of stuff. So we're going to start off pretty simply by dry brushing some dark grays back into the road to add some darker features to it. We've done this once already, but we put a black wash over top, which kind of mutes everything. So I like to go through just one more time and quickly give everything a dusting again. After this, we're going to do a light brown, and then once the white, or not a light brown, a tan, and then once we get the light tan done, we're going to go through and give everything a white highlight on all the rocks. That'll really help punch out the rocks, make them really stand out. I know a lot of people prefer to make the rocks look realistic, but I find with this type of terrain, I want the rocks to grab your attention. I want your eyes to be drawn to them. It helps hide any errors and mistakes that may have occurred, and it still looks natural enough that it's believable. After this step, you basically want to start adding some bushes. Some people add really small trees. Unfortunately, the video camera is still giving me some issues, so I wasn't able to actually show you me placing the bushes, but I'm going to have another video on how to make your own foliage and bushes, so you can see how I get that done and how I place it on a board at that time. After you place your bushes, you just go and you mix a white glue with about, I go 6 to 10 parts water, and then you can either use a spray bottle or an eyedropper, and you want to basically go over the entire board and seal everything with this mixture. It keeps all the grass nice and firm on the board, so when your figurines are rubbing up against it, it doesn't rub off very easily. And it protects the board if anything happens to fall on it, or dust, for instance. You can go with a vacuum and lightly vacuum up everything on the board. And it gives it a little bit of extra strength as well. And the very last step is you just want to paint the sides of the board of the tile black. This just helps any seams in case there's a gap or something, and it gives it a cleaner look. Here's a look at the board as it's on all my tiles. This is the river piece. It has a nice little bridge here I made myself. We got the elven outpost there in the far back, and we're stretching out over the board. We got just a simple crude tower being overrun by drow at the moment. Moving into my lake and swamp tiles and into my goblin fortress and back down to our 4-way tile. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Goblin Terrain.